Our third panelist is Dlamini, who is a registered intern counseling psychologist, a spiritual healer, and a motivational speaker. Her interest in heritage, indigenous knowledge was sparked when she discovered that she has ubizo, a calling to become a traditional healer. Her area of interest is in preserving heritage through her talks in topics such as balancing cultural and modern life demands. She also likes to delve into issues of mental health awareness amongst Black communities, and also tapping into indigenous ways of healing generational wounds, which could be leading to the escalation and rise of gender-based violence in the country. She also has a very keen interest on empowering men to coexist with empowered women. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that the panel of speakers that we have with us today are not only relevant to our discussion, but they have in-depth understanding and experiences that will enrich our discussions.
What I found, I thought I made note of, Uguti. So we're busy fighting patriarchy and saying men are putting us down and all of that. And Umama is coming here and saying us women are the ones that are putting other women down, especially the women that have paved the way for us. And what I got from there is that we have moved from that heritage fundamental principle of indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili umuntu ngomuntu ngabantu, because had we known these women have so much wisdom that we can actually learn a lot from them and then move forward, and then maybe sisifaka lokhu kwethu ke modernize it or whatever we want to do, but having known that the wisdom lies with the woman that paved the way for us. So I found that to be very touchy and very important that as young people we look into it. And also the fact that if we look at history as Mama Asho, and not looking at it as our history, then that's where again we keep pushing each other and saying ubani uteni. Again, if we politicize all of this too much and say, if we're looking at is Imbokodo Ubani, if we're looking at Imbokodo as women of the ANC or looking at Imbokodo as women of whatever political party, then that's when you start having this divide where people want to then bring forth to know they didn't do this, they didn't do that, because they're moving away from the fact that Imbokodo, we are women, we're not belonging. If we start belonging, then we'll do that in our own spaces, but not just in J. I can see your mouth is moving, so I don't know if I can't hear you. Your mic is off. Oh, I thought you were talking to me. So yes, that's when we start erasing the history, because then when we don't see the history as our history, our story, then we fight with each other. And I think I want to stop there because I'm just commenting on what Umama is saying, but it's very important that we don't move away from the wisdom that they give us. And also the understanding that it's not, sometimes when we can look within and say, these women that we're trying to put down as Mbokodo Yakdala, those are us. You know, I am because of my grandmother, I am because of my mother and my great-grandmother, so I can't put myself down. Thank you.
Questions are about what we are supposed to be doing differently to document the stories of women in South Africa, their contributions into all spheres and aspects of life, so that it can form part of academic heritage.
I think it's really about the us and them. Sifundile abafundanga. Kind of notion. And just to share my experience, Mina, I started realizing how much lack of literature or that is written about our culture only when I studied psychology, and when I did my master's and I needed to do my thesis and look for reference, and there was nothing. And when I found literature, I had to reference Abelungu. To say, let's say for instance, I'm doing my paper now on discourse analysis of how Ubutwasa is conceptualized in mainstream media. So here I'm talking about something that is ours, about our cultural part, you know. And I now have to reference Ofandam, Tontoni, no Banbani, because it's said that we haven't been writing. But who did they interview for them to write those papers, for them to produce those papers? They interviewed Ogogo Betu, they interviewed the Zangomas in the rural areas or wherever, you know, and therefore at the end of the day, we cannot then, if we want to tell our own narrative, we're being told without a reference, you can't write this. But it's my experience. It's something that I know, and all of that. So yes, it is important that now, as in the research space, we write something. But I really like it. I'm in a agreement with Mama to say oral history is much more important, because there, mama lapha ekhaya uzokhuluma in her own language, uzokhona ukunginikeza ama expressions where akadingi ukusho lutho mayethi hey mntanami, I can write a whole paragraph on just that yay, because I can see ubunzima that she went through. I can see, you know, what goes through in her mind when she talks about this. So it's all about and it says, I'm a founder of Isbansolwante, as these foundations that we're wanting to go back emakaya and go back to these unsung heroes that nobody knows of, that we go to them and say, tell us. You know, tell us the story. And we want them on camera, because we don't want, like Mama is saying, but people come in and quote and take her work and don't acknowledge. But if the person is on camera, because again, we have to acknowledge that the younger generation is moving away from reading books, from reading these papers that we're trying to write now. But they are so much on the online media, there's so much on going to YouTube, there's so much on going on finding the files that are oral. So if we do that as well and put a face to this story, it is much more powerful as well. Because if I just say, oh, I'm referencing, for instance, you're sitting there and you're thinking, ukoko. But when you see ukoko, there's a lot that you just learn and read just by seeing the face. So I really agree with that, Uguti. As much as we need to have things written, we also need to have spoken word, so that we also understand the importance of our own language as well. Because when I write this paper, I'm going to translate it into English, and I'm going to break a lot of things that Ukoko has said to me, or Mkulu has said to me. But if it's oral, we still keep exactly what she said and how she said it, and the emotions and the spiritual connection that you will get from it. When she calls on Abantu Bakubo Bagdala, when she calls on the animals and call them by name, you feel it, you know. So it is important that we have foundations or have spaces that we do that for the younger generations to be able to tap into it, and also baqale bajabulele ukuzwa ukuthi mangabe ukhuluma ulimi lakho lisounda kamnandi kanjani. Not ukuthi every time I'm telling my African story, but I'm telling it in a language that is not mine, which completely erases everything that they're supposed to be feeling and being proud of and embracing from that. So and also maybe moving, I see a few of the academics, they're starting to write in their own indigenous languages, which is very nice as well. We're moving away from when you need to qualify and do a thesis, if you do it in English all the time, but you do it in isiXhosa, in isiZulu. And personally, I would have liked to do my thesis in isiZulu, but I'm also that almost lost generation, and I'm trying to bring that back. And also with me coming back, I'm helping my children and going forward. So it's important that we fix ourselves. So I think it goes that we learn from Oma, because Basekhona, and we can still interview them because they learned from Okoko, which have gone, and then we can pass on that to our children. And then our country will be much more better, I believe, and be what we are thriving for and asking for. Thank you.
Which woman stands out? And I know, Ambassador Mtinso, you've already spoken about your aunt, but I would like you to tap into another experience of a woman who you draw inspiration from in terms of resistance and liberation, not only in the political context, but in how those words manifest in your life in different ways, in how you draw inspiration from her, and the heritage that this woman has embedded into your life that you are carrying forward in teaching your children, your grandchildren, and Nomawele and Tolintlantla, perhaps maybe in how you tap into that heritage of this woman that you draw inspiration from in making your life decisions?
If you're talking about the woman that has inspired me to be the woman that I am today, it has to be my mother, because this is the woman that has taught me everything that I know and everything that I am. As when you're shouting at your kids, you start hearing your mother's voice, how and it's exactly that. And if you can't, then I think if you had asked me this when I still had that Model C mentality, where you thought if somebody asked you about which woman inspires you, would have said Oprah Winfrey and Maya Angelou, or things like that, because we thought that inspires you, it needs to be somebody or with TV or someone in the limelight. And as you grow deeper within yourself, within your spirit, and understanding the you and connecting with your roots, you understand you cannot draw so much inspiration from the outside when the inside is empty. And so I'm very happy that she said that. And again, the woman that inspires me is my mother, Ulungile Omahatebe Dlamini. She was a teacher. Growing up, Menangizalwe, see deep in the rural areas where Uma would start schools. Mangabe gutwa iskole, people were learning under the tree. She'll be that woman that we brought in to say, okay, kufundelwe esontweni or esihlahleni, you have to build a school, and she will source funding. She will find, the systems to say we need a school. These kids cannot be learning from outside, and we will stay there. And I remember it's always been a joke, because I must have gone to what now is preschool, I suppose, I don't know, 5 times, or because there was no crash bang, so I would go to school and do grade 1, but I'm still 4, I'm still 5, I can't move on because I have to be there where my mother is. And when the school is blooming and is okay, she has to move to another space and appendule the soil again and start that. And at that time, I probably didn't learn much from it. And only now, when I'm becoming that, then I realize, they had faith in this woman, and they had faith in her understanding and wanting to fight for the communities that she was placed in. And remember, it wasn't even the communities that she grew up on. It's not she's usiza abantu where she bakhulele khona. Mama was from Escorts, and she married a shower, and then she has to work there, but she gave it all. And and I always say now, I'm known as Umzukulu kaBaqinile, because then uBaqinile is my mother's mother. So my mom is who she is because of my grandmother. And so if we learn ukuncela from those that really gave us ibele nyanyan, then it's fine. Then we can be proud to then start quoting abanye abantu, other women that are in politics and whatnot. Then it's fine, because we have worked with the self. And what I learned from these women as well is the spirit, is the activism. And ukuthi, being an activist is not just ukuthi ngoba nabo somebody, it's not reacting. And I find that people think being an activist is when you react. When somebody says your hair is whatever, then you take all of a sudden, yeah. When they say you're ugly, no. That is not being activism. And being an activist is being actively you every day, actively whatever you believe on a daily. For me, you don't need to ask me whether I believe in culture or if I'm a cultural woman or not on a Monday when you see me going to the office, because ninjena, you will find me ninja in the boardroom, you will find me ninja, this is who I am. I'm actively untla, who is Ntombazane Yomzulu, who married into Amampondo, and it's who I am. You can't change me. And so if we can move away, and what I've learned is you should move away from reacting all the time, because we wouldn't have to react, we wouldn't have to defend Ubutina if we just, if we were who we are all the time. So it's that, and it's also learning and advocating for others. For me, it is important to where I sit. I'm in the psychology space now, and that's why I speak of mental health and all of that. When I'm in the boardroom, and I remember when I was doing my master's, and one of the lecturers said, well, you're in psychology now. That means you're in a scientific space. So you cannot be talking about culture and witchcraft and spiritual beliefs because you are in a scientific space. And for me, I stood up and I said, I'm in the scientific space precisely to show you and to make you understand that there are a lot of people that are living out or living behind with these theories that do not speak to the African child. So we need to understand that in the spaces that we are in, we are there to change the narrative. We are there to be, not to fit in, but to show and be who we are and change the other people's mindsets by saying, no, these theories do not work for us. We are Black people, so therefore we experience things and do things differently. So then I come here bringing my own expertise and bringing my own experience, which is unique from yours, and therefore I put it on the table for you to consider. We should not always be a yes ma'am, a yes ma'am, a yes ma'am because we're wanting to get up in positions. And that's what I learned from my mother, from my grandmother, from the woman that raised me in the village, where they would say, no, mfundisi ngathi asizwanga kahle makunje. So don't be ukuthi ngoba naku, whether you're in the Christian or in the church structure where you're being told this is how we do things, and be afraid to say no. I don't think this works for us anymore. The Bible might say this today, but it's not working for the now or for the situation that we're in right now. So yeah, I think kumina kakhulu is the self. Know yourself and connect with your roots and connect with those that walked before you and learn from them, and then advocate for the young people. And we do not, like I say, I always want for the men to coexist with these empowered women. We always empower women, and then amadoda awasazi, where do they fit in? And so as we raise our young sons, I also have 2 boys, Asisi, and when I raise them ukuthi babone ukuthi if you're looking for a woman, first, I should role model for them what to look for. So I cannot then say, look for something else and give me another, they see something else. And then I should then teach them how to coexist. And also we pray, we pasha. We know we're African. We know we are educated. We know we're Christian. We know we're that, but yonkinto, none should be more important than the other. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
We have 3 questions from Facebook that I would like to read to our panelists for the 3 of you to respond to, whichever one that you want to take on. The first question is from Dlamini-Ngcoya, who is asking, do you think ukungenwa was a wrong thing? And if so, why? The second question is to Tolintlantla. How do you find to adopt a different culture more than the one that you grew up with? The third question is whether you think women these days are concerned about children's education as the elders did, or do you take it as it forming part of government duties?
You know, what we find is that our heritage and our culture has now been perceived to be something embi noma eyayenziwe to oppress us entirely. Yes, some of it did oppress us. Yes, some of it did cause some izinto ezimbi to us as women. But if you go and listen to abantu abadala and you ask them ukuthi why was kukhona into ekuthiwa ukungenwa kwaseqaleni, then you understand ukuthi it wasn't necessarily to oppress the woman, it wasn't necessarily to force the woman to stay in the family, but it was because the woman, remember mawushada uphuma nekist ekhaya, and the kist symbolizes ukuthi sewuphuma the next coffin oyophuma ngayo seyobe sewula oshadele khona, and therefore ngeke usabuyele ekhaya. So if ungasezokubuyela ekhaya and your husband has now passed away, And maybe you're still young, maybe you still want to have a husband. Besides that, there was the thing which a household needs to have the head of the family, where then a man will see to your safety, will see to providing for you, will see to providing for the kids. Therefore, umfowabo kamyeni wakho then uzokungena for your benefit, for the benefit of the kids, for the benefit of the family, and making sure ukuthi izingane zisakhula in the same surname, with the same cultural things ezenziwayo zala ekhaya, ngabe kaNgcoya, ngabe kaDlamini, sizoqhubeka senze usiko lala ekhaya, because ubaba said technically it's still the same father. So the understanding or where that came from was literally just, it was from a good space. And as we move on, things start changing, and there's additions, and there's manipulation, and then there's forcing. My battery is dying, oh gosh. So therefore then that's why it's bad. I might cut. So le enye culture, I was not raised as from a cultural background, bungoma, nani, but I'm gone. I don't know if you can still see me. Okay, I was not raised ngaloko, but as I started understanding myself and spiritually connected with my ancestors myself, I was able then to adopt whatever they're teaching me, whatever I must learn from them, because I'm not listening to the noises. I'm not listening to what other people are saying I must do. I must go twice. In actual fact, I went to twice when I was doing my master's in psychology, and some of my colleagues were like, no, please wait until you get there, because you're going to smell, because that was the conceptualization that they had about ukutwasa, about going, about ukwenza izinto zesintu nani, because it's supposed to be something bad that smells, that's for ugly people. And I remember somebody prayed for me and said, uzofaka izinto ezibomvu njengengulube and stuff like that. And that is what people are being told. But when you're listening to your own people and you're connecting spiritually, you are able to adopt. And I get that as Spansoland Healing Space, this is the constant question that says, how then do I convert from being what I was told and from what I thought was what I'm supposed to be, and now all of a sudden saying no bizo, and all of a sudden I must now be a cultural somebody, which I was not. And literally what I say is, listen to yourself, connect with yourself spiritually, with your people, and stop listening to the noises. And then you are able to walk freely and proudly and embracing who you are without being ashamed, without feeling what's abantu bazothini, because abantu bazothini syndrome is what is killing us. I think I've answered those two questions, even though ngasaziboni ngikhona noma cha.
As we're wrapping up, I'd like to hear your thoughts, your suggestions on the ways in which we can effectively try and address the root causes of gender-based violence in South Africa.
We'll start with you. I don't know if I was supposed to Togoza or so forth, but please educate me so that I do not make the same mistake in the future. But can you please, from your own experiences of Ukutwasa, you are a psychology expert, take us through it, what your suggestions are, and as Sis Nomawele and Mam Tenjiwe are then going to also give their suggestions or opinions on the matter.
Okay. So we're not going to Togoza just yet, because we don't want to go that part. but basically, I want to say, Uti, I'm a stats as a South Africa, I see 60%. More than 60% of people seek traditional healing before going to Western, to seek Western medication or going to a Western doctor. And that is what stats are saying. But if we ask ourselves, Guti, how true is that? Is that the true reflection of what is happening? We'll say it's not true, because abantu, they will, if the first instinct will be to call an ambulance, will be to take me to a doctor, will be to take me to umfundisi and stuff like that, because our own healing methodology is not normalized. It is looked down upon. It is something that you go to as the last option. It's something that you go to, and when people consult, they'll say, yo, sengithandazelwe, sengiye kumasonto such, saying when I'm a specialist such, and therefore realized ukuthi no man, this has something to do with maybe cultural, it embeds in some cultural background. But the reason of that is because we, sikhule kwathina, myself included, abantu abayizangoma sibasaba or sazi ukuthi abathakathi, as umama had mentioned at some point ukuthi people were accused of being witch doctors, and there was that witchcraft act that was also there where people just decided to just maybe steer away from indaba yelokuzane yezinto zesintu. And then there was issue of Christianity that also came, where people then looked at, and still again we were told ukuthi izinto zamadlozi, you shouldn't look into them and nan, which I feel it has a huge impact with GBV right now, because there's a lot of things that we are suffering from, just from knowing who I am, just from not knowing Isibongo Sami as a man, just from not knowing my roots and knowing my father, and being and not being exposed to ukuhlala nobaba bendawo and really teaching you, because if you're not Xhosa or you are entabeni, where do you get that moment where you sit with obaba and groom you and teach you ukuthi umuntu wesifazane indlovukazi undlunkulu and all of that, who are the importance of women and protecting them, and your role as a man to protect and provide for, as they would say, even though we now can provide for ourselves and we're buying guns to protect ourselves, because obviously that narrative has moved away. But in a heritage yethu, technically men are supposed to be playing that role to protect us. But why they're not doing that is because either something went wrong culturally, where born ourselves abazazi imisuka yabo and their roots and all of that, or mentally also, because that it interlinks. There's a link between psychology and culture, and every time when I wrote my papers, I always will be talking about the impact of culture in psychopathology, because this is psychopathology where really you cannot, in your mind, in your proper senses, ubulale the person that gave birth to you, your mother, just because ucela imali kagwayi wangakunikeza, then you find it within you ukuthi ungambulala. It's clearly something somewhere in your psyche is wrong. And unfortunately, because of this, also, I don't know whether to put it back to culture or what, that thing of ukuthi indoda ayikhali, and we were talking about Imbogodo, how Imbogodo can be in a shower, be strong, be njani. But then again, there's that narrative of indoda ayikhali, indoda cannot be weak, as a daughter you cannot go and seek help. We need to normalize for men to be able to go and seek mental health, for men to be able to go for counseling, for men to be able to speak out when there's something that is worrying them. Because I also majored in criminology, and when you sit, and I was also I had the pleasure of working in the military, where you sit with mhlambe abantu that have got post traumas that they go through. But because they don't talk about those traumas, because they don't want to seem weak, either to their peers, either to their colleagues, and also if then they must express their weaknesses or express what they're going through, then it affects their ngaphakathi bathule. But we call it ukufela ngaphakathi, and then babulale thina ngaphandle. Because then they're not dealing with themselves, then they're killing us. So I think for me, and I cannot say this enough, let's normalize seeking help for men. Let's normalize for women also to be able to give men the respect as well. Because again, as we're moving towards this feminism and empowering and whatnot, we tend to then also see if a man is not working, if a man is not affording what we think he should be affording, then we start sibachita in a certain way, and then we also start being, I'm my own provider, I'm independent, I'm this. We need to coexist, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Coexistence is very important. That as well, if it's not even just in relationships, but if you're raising a boy and a girl, it needs to be equal. they need to understand ukubaluleka kwalokho, and it starts at home then before it gets out. So I don't think tapping into indaba, because even mawukhuluma ngendaba yokuthwasa, if I was talking about my thesis that says ukuthi if you look at newspapers, most things that are reported on is a female go but bayothwasa bogobela that are supposed to be training them. They rape them, they kill them. So where you're supposed to be seeking help, you figure khona futhi uye esontweni, you think you're going to umfundisi still rapes you, and all of those things. So we need to just go back to being to say, men, please, can you just understand that we are just as human beings as you. We just need to be respected as you. And also, if you understand that my sister is me, then I was limaza. Thank you.